Hey all, I'm Garen with Power CNC. I've been running the Syil behind me since, I ordered it in 2020, right as COVID kicked off. I've been running this since probably 2022 because 2021 I got deployed in the Army. Long story, I'm out now, retired. But yeah, this is a 2020 model. It's the first model with the epoxy. It's not a cast iron frame. It's been a good mill. Since then, I've been kind of documenting my journey, and I've been putting those videos on PowerForge and Workshop. So if you've come over from PowerForge and Workshop, thanks for coming over. If you want to see some of my earlier videos, I'm going to keep them there. Recently, I've done a few upgrades on this, and I'm just trying to improve my experience with the mill. I'm trying to, give it a little TLC. One of the things that I was forced to do after a vacation was discharge the old coolant and put in new coolant. Now I got some, what was it? It was advanced, I can't remember it was some advanced coolant that I got when I bought the mill through a contact that was working with Syil at the time. I think it was model number 630C. And it was okay. It kind of foamed. I don't know if you have a Syil X7. I don't know if you've noticed this, but it's, at least with this version and probably going forward, it's got a pretty high pressure coolant pump. Combine that with new coolant, combine that with some high spindle speeds, and you can really increase foam in a hurry and then have a flood in a hurry. What I'd like to go over in this video are some of the changes that I've made to try and mitigate that. I've got a different coolant. I'm going to show you that first. I want to keep the coolant cleaner. I want to keep the sump cleaner because when I discharged the coolant and cleaned out the tank, I probably found a cubic foot of chips, very fine chips, because I like to rough with roughing end mills. That makes a small chip. And I do a lot of engraving, and I make a lot of dies for coin work, so very small, intricate CNC work, and that creates some fines. That creates some fine chips. So the last thing that we'll talk about, well, not the last thing, but another thing we'll talk about is how I'm trying to filter that as the coolant's returning and going into my chip tray and back into the sump. And then lastly, how do I keep the coolant fresh? Somebody said get a fish tank aerator. I got one of those. And how do I pull the oil, the tramp oil, back out of the coolant? And I got a solution for that. So let's go ahead and start with the new coolant I purchased. And as I go through all of this stuff, if you run a Syil, if you run any kind of CNC, please comment below, add to the discussion. Help me know. I'm really bad at watching YouTube unless there's something really specific. I don't spend a lot of time on YouTube. I don't watch TV, but I do. I do my own thing, and I'm on this channel. So, please help a guy out. Leave a comment. I really wanted the Blazer coolant because that seems like what everyone's getting. I ended up going with this trim Microsol 690 XT. I did look at another model. I think it started with a 5. Was it a 585? But when I'm doing some of my tool work for blacksmithing tooling, I do like to tap. I do some rigid tapping. I'm just getting into single point thread milling. And this has a better reputation for tapping. It boasts that it's low foam, and it's high lubricity for your tapping. There were quite a number of YouTube testimonials on their website and on Amazon. That's another reason that I went with this, is because it's readily available on Amazon. I can buy it whenever I need to, and I bought this in the 5-gallon container. One of the reasons that kept me from buying the Blazer or another name brand, well, this is name brand, but another type of coolant is, I don't know what it is. maybe it's 25 years in the military. I don't want to, I don't want to sign my name anymore, and I'm tired of giving out information. I don't want a tool rep, okay? Okay, I'm done ranting. But that's what keeps me from doing it. I don't want to sign up for somebody to call me and to try to sell me. It's probably cool. It's probably the way to go. I'll probably get better taken care of, and maybe I'll go that route in the future. We'll see how this does though. Okay, I've got this. I've used a third of the bottle to charge this system, and maybe I've got, I'm gonna have to keep a 5-gallon tote of kind of a lower solution to keep topping it up as it evaporates. We're in the winter, and so I'll probably get one more charge out of this. Brand new, mixed. I had to leave the shop. I had to open this big door and turn on my exhaust fan because it was too toxic. It was giving me headaches. But luckily, it has calmed down since then, and it's working great. I'm really pleased with this coolant so far. Here's that extra 5-gallon bucket that I keep. In fact, I'm ready to fill it up. Well, it's so light I can't open it, but I usually keep about a 0.5% solution here, so 3 to 5% solution. I try to keep the main sump between 7 and 10 for the work that I do, and they recommend between 7 and 10 to have the best sump life and rust protection in the mill. When I did the old solution with the advanced 630C, again, I think that's what it was. Oh wait, I've got it right here. This is what I had in here before. Advanced, 630C. It worked. I wasn't a big fan. It was always foaming. I really struggled. That would foam unless I had to take the solution down to way below 5. It had to be below 5 or it would foam crazy. But like I said before, I filmed this entire batch up of coolant batch up with distilled water. On their website and in their instructions, Metalloid said that I could do that. I didn't need the hard water from my tap, and I have some really clean hard water. And when I cleaned up my mill, I noticed, those hard water deposits you get in your house. I got them in the mill. I got them on the table, and it was a real pain to get those off. If I don't have to do that, I'm going to try to not do that. Of these, I just bought these at Walmart, and it took 14 gallons mixed, and I did the math, and I would put 4 full-gallon distilled water in here, and then, oh boy, what was it? It was about 50. It was about 50 ounces of the solution, and then I would mixed it with one of these things on a drill, and then I poured it in the sump. And then after, I ran it through the mill after that for about 20 minutes, and then I took a refractory, what's that called? Refractometer reading, and right now I'm sitting right around 8.5 to 9% solution. So that'll cool off a little bit, but I do want to keep it above 7. This leads me to these chip trays. I made this chip tray, actually, let me pull it out here. Let's bring it over here to the table and you can see here what it looks like. I made this chip tray. I bought the screen from McMaster car, and I think it's 0.006 inch openings, 6 thou openings, mesh. I think so. It's doing great. I was gonna fab this up myself, but then I noticed McMaster car sold some components to make this work, and I'll leave a link in the description for what this for how much this was. But if you got angle iron and you can weld, weld it up. So this is roughly 16 inches wide. Just happens to fit perfectly in the chip tray. And this is about 20 inches long. Okay. And then I notched it in the front so it slides under the lip. of the, boy, what do you call that? The catch basin that catches the chips and then directs the coolant to flow back into the basin. It fits under that. And then underneath, I did end up doing some fabrication work. I took some plated steel, I believe this is 12 gauge, and you know, I cut some 45s on it, and then I ended up riveting it to the bottom here. And everything in between this plate and the case and the screen is silicon, clear silicon. Okay, so everything, all the joints are sealed with silicon. And I got all these chips from running these parts yesterday. These are the parts that I was running when I talked about using the 0-point base plate from Syil X7 CNC, not having to probe. I was running these round tooling for the fly press. So 3/8, 1/2 inch, 5/8, and 3/4. So this fits perfectly into this, you know, catch basin that Syil provides. And then I went ahead and I put more of that fine mesh that I got from McMaster card in here. And this is some of the same, it's kind of a, yeah, anyway, it's just steel that I cut 45s on. I put the mesh down over silicon, and then I siliconed these down, and then all the edges. So this is not riveted in. I can cut that silicon, I use it as a glue, and I can pull that out if I have to, so that's not modified. But so far so good. I'm probably going to have to bump up this back end because I get some coolant that just kind of hangs out here at the back, and it doesn't want to go forward, and there is a lip there, but that's okay. That's okay. So far so good. It's going to keep most, if not all, of the chips from even entering the sump. The idea for operation is when I'm doing things with fine chips, I'll leave this forward. This is my initial idea. And then let's say I'm running aluminum that, you know, aluminum chips, they float and they fill up fast. I can either pull this completely out or I can back this up, but I'd probably just pull this out. But running steel, that works perfectly fine. With aluminum, I'd probably just yank that out or leave it in. And in between jobs, I can lift that out and then dump it in a tin or in a box, and I'm good to go. A lot easier to get the chips out. I keep a small wet dry vac here, and this actually prompted this video. Before when I warm up the mill, I'll come around here and I'll clean up the chips from the day before. I get the big chips, you know, with the dustpan, or I'll pull that out and throw it in a box. And for the little chips, I just vacuum them up, and then every once in a while dump that in the box. This leads me to the last thing I wanted to talk about, and that's keeping the coolant fresh. I've got an aerator, you can see over my shoulder here, that I bought on Amazon. Probably cost $15, $20. And I've got that on a smart plug, and it's automated. And then I bought this belt-driven tramp oil skimmer, and I'll zoom in on this and tell you guys the schedules, and you tell me if I'm doing it too much or not enough, or how you would do it. Here is the aerator. Again, I've got it plugged into a smart plug. These go off the schedule I use Google Home, or I can just turn it on with this button here or here. This runs my oil skimmer, and the cords just are routed down to their respective areas. The aerator goes through that access port. This big white line, that comes from that's my primary oil coolant separator. And as the oil, the idea is the oil goes out one side, the excess coolant comes out this side. I primed this with distilled water before, I started running this new coolant, and hopefully the oil and everything floats on top of that water. We'll see. And so excess coolant goes in there, and that's where there's a stone, an aerated stone that goes in there, holds the air hose down, and then when I turn it on, I'll turn it on here. Maybe you can see bubbles. Yeah, you can see some bubbles. It bubbles the coolant. So that was a great idea a viewer gave me, and I've read it on Facebook. But in my mind, how does that aerate the coolant that's sitting over here, right? Or here. This is full of baffles, and there's a gate here. There's another gate here, so it's not getting the coolant here. So I've got this aerator set on a schedule from midnight until 8 o'clock, all right? Midnight to 8 o'clock every day. And then every other day, I've got this belt, and you can see it's running right now because I've turned it on. This belt, belt-fed oil coolant separator. And underneath, you can see there's a little, it's not a float. That's actually, you're supposed to adjust this. I can adjust this thing up and down, and the top of that is where you need to put that right at the top of the coolant. Underneath that is a propeller. When that oil coolant separator turns on, the propeller spins and it draws in coolant, hopefully from other areas of the tank. And then, and it draws in that top layer of oil, and then the belt goes up, catches the oil. The oil is shed off here at this blade and then goes down here, and I've just got an old coffee can for it to collect. And I've only been running this for about a week, so there's hardly anything in there, if nothing at all. I did have to cut a hole in that plate, but I kind of like it. I kind of like having the hole there, because when I come out here in the morning, it's a nice visual. I have a level set where I set the oil separator, the top of that, so I know if I'm low, I'll add it up with this auxiliary 5-gallon bucket that I have. Here are some of the changes that I've made. My coolant, the oil coolant separator, and the aerator. Some of it may be overkill, maybe the aerator, boy, I don't know, but I'm gonna run with it. But the Syil itself, despite me running it the way I did since 2022, the Syil has worked great, and it still continues to be a nice little workhorse for my small shop. Thanks for tuning in. Catch you on the next one. Bye.